Welcome back for another Kerbal Space Program 2 adventure. This time we're playing with rovers, and specifically, I want to put a rover on the moon, and I want it to be a nice rover where they can live in it, like it's a rolling moon base. I decided to keep the constraints of it has to be able to fit in the largest size tube, and mainly I did that because my current launch vehicle is kind of a space plane. But it was very important to me that the rover had a lot of habitable space. So the whole bottom section, that is all seating for two. So each one of those I envision is like there's three sleeping pods down there. Then there's a whole recreation center or laboratory room in that big can on the back. And then there's the whole cockpit area for three people. And then there's also a deck around it, not too unlike a boat. So it's kind of a rolling land boat. And you can link multiples together and make trains out of it. And then it's even more stable and better to control. So this is my portable moon base. So then of course you got to put it on the moon. So I loaded it in my launch vehicle, start to do some tests. And I did get the rover into space. And I was thinking about the next step, which would be to send some kind of landing vehicle to dock with the rover, and then some kind of transfer vehicle to push it out to the moon. And then I thought about I'd like more than one of these on the surface so I can build a bigger base and it's more stable and just a better place to live. And that's a lot of launches and that's a lot of time. And so I decided it'd be more fun to just design a heavy launch vehicle just for sending things to the moon. And because I'm designing a heavy launch vehicle, I'm no longer constrained by the inside of one of those biggest aircraft tubes. So I'm going to build just an ideal landing vehicle. So something pretty big and wide with a low center of mass with the rover on it anyway. Preferably the rover at the bottom. So I'm thinking something kind of like a space crane or a sky crane. I like my deep space vehicles to be able to do multiple jobs. So this is going to be a lander delivery vehicle. It is also a moon hab slash small little base. It also is going to have solar panels for generating power. And it's also going to function as an ascent vehicle and a reentry vehicle. So every time I deliver a payload to the surface, I'm also putting down a little base with return capability for 4 people. Alright, time to launch this to the Mun. And every flight, I experienced this problem with the satellite dish on the very top of everything overheating, even though it was within the fairing. And so I just decided to have a very non-aggressive launch profile. Well, I got the whole combined spaceship into orbit, and then after that I just pushed it off towards the moon, and I got into a nice circular-ish lunar orbit and plotted my descent to the surface. Things are all going great. I did run into some trouble with decouplers because I forgot to turn on crossfeed for them, but as soon as I figured that out and I was able to actually use my engines, descent went pretty smoothly. And then it was just kind of fine-tuning how hard I was able to come down with that heavy rover down there and the wheels and the little landing legs. But it worked out. I'm actually really, really happy with it. I'm a little unhappy though that I didn't seem to have footage of the actual landing, so sorry about that, but we're here on the moon, we're going to play around with this rover. I experienced this weird bug getting out of the big rocket, the return vehicle, which later I found out has to do with the where the parachutes are placed. Go figure. I've had nothing but trouble with that hitchhiker cab. But I'm really happy with this rover itself. I can't wait till they build the interiors for these things. Just goofing around. I got everybody out on the deck. Everybody on deck. Just hanging out, driving around on the moon. Really happy with this. If only it had the ability to return to Kerbin or to launch a return vehicle, then it could really just go anywhere and then head home whenever you want. But I'm happy enough with this 2 vehicle setup I've got going on. This is really highlighting though that the game still has a lot of trouble when you're running a lot of vehicles or a lot of parts, I guess I should say. So I'm very curious to see how the future of multiplayer and colonies and how all that all ties together and what performance looks like when the game's at that stage. What an exciting time to be a Kerbal. Gotta leave some kind of smart remark here, so yeah, please feed and water my rover. Indeed. Well, now to fly back to Kerbin and hopefully survive. That would be great. I loaded all four on board the landing vehicle, took off pretty easily, didn't even get into orbit around the Mun, just flew straight on to Kerbin, and then I went for the least Delta V, just straight intersection with the planet. Figured, let's give the heat shield a good test. And this is when I discovered I made a huge design mistake, because I put the pod so it would be expendable, the control pod. But then the game doesn't count the hitchhiker cabin with my Kerbals in it as a controllable vehicle. I tried all sorts of things, quick loading and quick saving, and it's just a broken design. So I loaded a quick save so my Kerbals are safely landed on the moon still. I started modifying the return vehicle, so it should be controllable now. I did a few tweaks on the rover, like a better ladder and stuff like that. Threw it all together, decided to color it blue, and now we're on a robotic rescue mission. The rocket itself is sweet and simple and nothing too complicated with it. Plenty of power to push my payload into orbit even with my really inefficient launch profile. Then off to the moon and a very easy landing, especially since I was able to set all the decoupler crossfeed settings in the builder ahead of time. And the blue pill is successfully delivered to the Mun, and look at that, I even managed to record the landing, so there you go, pics, it happened. Then I began my long and arduous, almost 14-kilometer drive to my original landing site. Yeah, I overshot it by a little. Where I'm gonna join with the other rover, so I'm an even more efficient, untippable rover. And then I'll drive the crew back to the new ascent vehicle, and hopefully it's able to be controllable, so I can hopefully get them safely back to the surface of Kerbin. Fingers crossed. I had a bit of a battle between the SAS modes, between all and SAS only. If it was set to SAS only, the vehicle drove a lot better. Specifically, the accelerate and decelerate worked a lot better. It didn't try to tip the vehicle itself. But turning the torque back to all really helped to recover from situations where the rover's going to tip, or like that crazy jump I just took. Well, then after all that driving, when I got within a kilometer of my target, the vehicles over there just exploded for some reason. So I quick loaded and I switched to that vehicle and everything was fine, or so I thought, because then I really struggled to get my Kerbals out of the ascent vehicle, because like I said earlier, I discovered there's a weird glitch where you don't actually exit at the hatch, you exit a little higher up, and I put a parachute there. So anyway, long story short, I had to just dock to it and transfer my Kerbals over manually. So then I'll drive out and I'll meet the blue pill, and hopefully we're on our way home. Now that I've got my two rovers together, I'm really excited because it's time to build the moon train, which should be a lot less tippable, a lot more stable, that it's bigger and has a larger track. And I was super impressed the speeds I was able to get out of it. As a combined unit, I was getting over 15 meters a second, which is I think somewhere around like 35 miles an hour, so not lightning fast, but really fast for a moon rover. Then at last I was pulling up to the ascent vehicle, and then it's time to just move my Kerbals over and take off, and we're flying back to Kerbin, baby. Things were looking good, ascent went good. I just blasted my way straight to Kerbin, so maximum heating will give the heat shield a good test again. This time I should be able to control my hitchhiker capsule because I attached the control pod directly to it, so we should be at least controllable this time. Things got toasty, but I was able to maintain control, and the game was focused on the hitchhiker cabin, so I did, however, have a problem with not having enough parachutes to adequately slow me down, and actually, on the first landing attempt, I hit the ground at almost 20 meters a second and totally exploded. So I had to load a quick save and try it again, and I had just rolled my whole way down, and it seemed to cut out enough meters a second, got me to land at about 15. However, then I was stuck in this endless roll down the hill, and I I just waited it out until I got to the bottom of the hill, and then I recovered my Kerbals, and hey, mission accomplished. Nobody died. Rovers were tested on the moon. They're still up there to go visit again another day. And I'm really happy with how this all turned out. This was a really fun adventure. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I do really appreciate that. And tune back in next time for another Kerbal Space Program 2 mission of some kind. I don't know what yet. We'll see.